Hey guys, welcome to Albion Elementary. This is my video where I'm going to go over a tier list for what I would consider the most useful weapons for ZvZ and larger scale Black Zone content. If you're looking to get into this type of content, a lot of the time your first thought, especially if you're a better player, will be, oh, well, what does the zerg need? That can help, and a lot of the time you'll get a varying amount of different kinds of answers based on not only the guild itself, but like the types of content that the guild is doing. So if you're doing outposts, or you're doing castles, or you're doing territories, those lists may be similar but not exactly the same. And if you're doing straight up brawling out in open world, or if you're attacking a terry rather than defending it, sometimes a lot of the weapons that you'll pick up over time are going to be different from the different types of content. What this video is going to do is it's going to help you hone in not only on how to make that decision for yourself, but also push you into a direction so that you can be better off in the longer term. A lot of the time, you may not stay with the guild that you're in, or you'll get relegated to a different kind of a role. And you're going to want options more than anything. So above all of the different types of information that come from this video, just know the more of these that you level, the more options you have, the easier it's going to be for you to get into a larger scale guild, mid-size guild for ZvZ specifically. A lot of the time, especially if you play in a particular role within each of the different sets. So for example, swords. These are all of the swords. I'll just stick them here. This is the swords tree. If you play one of the different kinds of swords, or you enjoy swords combat specifically, you'll find that it benefits you to have all of these things to at least say 50, and I'll go over that on its own video as to what you should level them to for each of the different weapon types. If you're curious as to what to level for your exact weapon, let's say you pick carving. I'm going to use carving as an example because I think of carving as a very useful weapon. It's used in brawl. It's used in some melee clap comps. It's used in open world. A lot of the time, you won't see carving in higher tier like territory or castle style comps because you do a lot of the fighting over the wall. Carving sort of has this problem where it's melee. It can't hit over the wall, as far as I know. It's just straight up useless in that scenario, unless you're playing a little bit more defensive carving and you're trying to be out where the tanks are. This is something I don't recommend. If someone is asking you to do this specific thing, it's because they want you to be something else. Realistically, that's what it boils down to. But for the roles that it does fit into, given that res penetration stacks or defense penetration stacks, it is very useful. It's very useful in the scenarios where it is good, and I don't think that it is bad enough that I would put it at niche. Broadsword is useless. That is a useless weapon. Let me move these up because I know I'm going to move them anyway. Broadsword is actually useless. I would never bring this to ZvZ. The same is probably true for double swords. The same is probably true for claymore. And realistically, Galantine pair. If somebody's asking you to play Galantine pair, you're having a bad time. This weapon doesn't get enough love, in my opinion. It's been through very many different renditions of hating on itself, so to speak. And it's so stupid because the promo right now for the Crucible for the streamer event is Galantine pair. So I don't understand. I really think they should have buffed it for only this season, if nothing else. It would have been pretty funny to see that. So as far as things that are whack, I think that Infinity Blade is whack. Nobody uses this weapon. If somebody uses this weapon, it's because it's a pet weapon, meaning like they just really like it. But you almost never see this on a comp sheet. And if you do, realistically, you're going to see one because the person who made the comp sheet has it in their pet list. Like, they like the weapon. The same could probably be said for Kingmaker. Clarent Blade, like I just don't want to put it at the same level as these two because they're just whack. Clarent Blade's not really whack. It's just that it needs a higher degree of skill to be played. You got to have a really good eye for positioning because Clarent Blade, it runs into this problem where where you want to wear cloth because you really want to hit hard because that's Clarent Blade's like thing, right? But if you're wearing cloth, you really don't want to be that close. So it's so hard to have that balance between those two things and have it be really successful, in my opinion. I think it's not worth it. If you're carving, right, look at Clarent Blade just because it's cool to have IP on the other stuff in the tree. Once you get your first three IP'd up, that's probably like the next thing that I would start just like checking out for the meme mostly. But nobody's ever going to let you wear it. Realistically, they're just going to pretend that you're a carving with, a wish for being on Clarent. As far as axes, battle axe it's basically useless. I can't think of a scenario where I would ever bring one where I wasn't just bringing Great Axe, which is whack. If somebody's telling you to bring Great Axe, realistically, they just wish you were an Infernal. Because Infernal is a pretty niche weapon. It's used in... Man, it's almost being useful. The thing... I'm putting it in niche and I'm sticking to it. I know that's going to hurt some people's feelings, but guys, this weapon just got nerfed. You can't stack 5 or 6 of them anymore. If you're bringing them, you bring one. That's just how it is. You never bring more than one unless your zerg is massive. And in which case, you're not watching this video, you know just as much as I do. Halberd. Halberd's not really worth it. It's used in some... I'm trying to think. It's used in some like brawl scenarios where there's some ongoing pressure comp. Halberd, Astral, Dawnsong, just like wide AoE constant downward pressure comps. That really doesn't exist above like 25 people. Nobody's ever going to ask you to bring a halberd. They're just going to wish that you were an Infernal or realistically maybe even a Carrion Caller. Carrion Caller is the same way though as halberd. They're used in tandem a lot for the bleed. Carrion Caller is much more a mid-scale, like 7v7 to like 12v12 type of a weapon. Like maybe you can push up to like 14 or 15. Once you start getting into like, I'm almost at 20, you might as well comp up. And by saying that, I mean to say that you would not have halberd in your, or Carrion Collar or halberd in your comp in the first place. Unless it was admittedly purposely smaller scale and your design was, again, that top-down pressure that exists. Maybe this is even less popular now because of Rock Collar, which I'll get to. Bear Paws. Bear Paws is a niche. Actually, I mean, it's another one of those, like, it's almost useful. The only reason I'm not going to put it in useful is, unlike carving, you really can't bring it in like all sorts of different kinds of comps. That's like the thing that I see from useful weapons is I want to bring carving to a melee clap. I want to bring carving to a brawl. I'm probably going to bring one. I might bring two if I'm like getting crazy and I have 25, 30 people. You're not ever bringing Bear Paws to an over-the-wall battle, just like you wouldn't bring carving because it's melee. And 90% of the time, if you're bringing Bear Paws, it's because you're brawling inside. Bear Paws is very much a brawl weapon, especially now that it heals itself with his E, which, ooh, chef's kiss. I actually really like the rework. I really like the rework. I really like the rework for Bear Paws specifically because it has a little bit more, you know, like that Street Fighter, like, brawling style thing. You know, like, when I think Bear Paws, I think, like, Zagat's playstyle. And I know that sounds crazy and it's a wild analogy, but trust me, it lines up. Okay, Realm. Realm was useful. Man, Realm was a must-have. Realm was a must-have. Realm, if I'm making a comp, the first thing on the list is not going to be Realm, but it's going to be pretty close to the top thing. If I'm going to go through and, man, if I just started rattling things off, I don't want to do that for the sake of the tier list because I don't want to spoil anything. And I'm sure that Some people have ideas of what they think are the must-haves, but trust me, Realm's a must-have. If I have 5 or I have 50, if I'm hitting over the wall or if I'm brawling inside, if I'm melee clap or if I'm ranged clap, if I'm clap kite, if I'm clap soak, if I'm any type of comp that is doing the outpost, Terry, castle, black zone content, right? I'm bringing Realm. 100% of the time, I'm bringing Realm. It's one of the best weapons in the game. In the game, I promise you, one of the best weapons in the game. It deserves a spot there, right? I'm going to be really picky about the must-haves. Realm is a must-have, right? I think it speaks for itself. It does so much on one weapon, and it hits hard, right? So we're definitely going to take that. The next thing we're looking at is Crystal Reaper, the last axe, the crystal weapon. It's not worth it. It's borderline whack. I'm gonna put it in whack. I think that if you're bringing Crystal Reaper, it's a case where you could have brought Great Axe. They do just about the same thing, like as far as like just dealing damage. They don't provide much in the way of like active support, which in this day and age, if you're bringing DPS, they need to do something also. Like they need an also. And I think that Crystal Reaper, its also is that it could be like a higher tier. I would bring T9 or T10 Crystal Reaper if I'm on T8, or T7 or T8, like comp. If I'm comping at T7, I'll bring a T9. But like you gotta be kind of sweaty if you're playing a Crystal Reaper, or just be really good at the weapon. It's whack though. I wouldn't bring it. One-hand mace. One-hand mace. One-hand mace does see some use, but it seems like it's not worth it to me. That's where I want to put it. My first instinct is to put it in not worth. I'm going to stick to that. I think that most comps in the current day and age are not bringing one-hand mace. They're not. If they're bringing one-hand mace, it's because they're small scale. 7 to 7, 12 to 12, pushing up to that 14 to 14, as I said before. Any other time, you're bringing heavy mace. Heavy mace is very useful. It's almost a must-have. It wants to be a must-have so badly. I'm not going to give it to it. There are very small case scenarios, where heavy mace just gets out-edged in some cases. Specifically for Terry defense, you might not bring more than one, right? Or in some clap kite scenarios where you only have like 20 people, probably only bringing one hard stop because I want to kite more than I want to stop, and I could just keep them out of me if I'm doing my thing correctly. You're going to bring one heavy mace. This is not a question. But it can be taken out. There's other things that I think that a lot of cutesy callers will get rid of their heavy mace sometimes. I like 2 heavy maces personally, but I guess it depends on, the size of your comp, who's playing, etc. I digress. Not quite as good as Realm, in my opinion. Morningstar is not worth. It's whack. I have a guy in my guild. He'll see this video. He's gonna laugh at me. It's whack. It's whack, dude. Would I bring it? Hell yeah. But it's whack. It's so whack. All it does is it holds people still for a while, which is cool, but it doesn't do enough, right? It needs to last for an eternity. Like, it needs to force you to boots for me to want to bring it. You got to be in, like, a Bridge Watch cape, right, with hunter shoes. Like, you got to be going as hard as possible to root people for as long as possible, and in which case it's kind of dangerous to play. If you have somebody that's good at Morningstar, you could bring a Brim Bomb. That can be the most destructive thing that exists if they do things correctly. It's just hard to play. That's more why I'm saying this. If it was a preference for like higher tier, like veteran players, I'd probably move it up to not worth, maybe even as borderline as niche. But as far like if you're watching this video, you don't play it. It's whack. No one's ever going to ask you to play it. You're not even going to need spec in it ever, literally forever, unless they buff. They would have to do something insane to it. Put it that way. Bedrock is useful. Bedrock belongs in every comp, in my opinion. There are very 1% limited use case scenarios for not bringing at least one bedrock. A lot of comps will run 2. A lot of 40-mans will run 3. They'll run a whole bunch of these fucking things. It basically just pushes people around. And believe it or not, positioning wins fights. Is it a must-have? Nah, I could get around without it. I don't need it real bad. It's fucking annoying to play against, rather. And that's why I like to bring it. But do I need it? It's great, though. I will bring it, but I could live without it, I guess. Incubus. Ooh, Incubus is... Incubus is an interesting weapon because I like the idea of slamming all of the different decreases to defense and resistance all at the same time to stack them as high as possible. I come from a background in ARPGs and playing things like Path of Exile, where the more negative resistances you stack, the harder you're hitting. That's just how it is. So it's easier to kill people. Having more effects that do this thing also make it easier to kill if someone's not hitting. So, like, for example, if your Damnation gets silenced in the middle of his cast or something, this is just like a buffer. I would only usually bring it in the 40, though. So, like, I'm only bringing this if I have up to 40 people. So, like, it doesn't have a spot in the main Zerg almost ever. But I can and will bring it. It's thinking about being whack, even. But I'll just say that it's not worth. It's something that if you have spec in, cool, offer it. Somebody might want to bring it, and it's one of those things where it's pretty easy to spec because you can get it as a PvE tank spec. Like, you could do this in a couple days probably if you have a good group. So yeah, I think not worth. Like, right around there. Camlan? I think this is a Camlan Mace. I never see this anymore. People speak to me of the days of the Camlan Mace and how they were good. Not anymore. Camlan's dead to us, bro. It's whack. It's thinking about being useless. That's so sad to me. Because it was once a very good weapon based on what people say. It's held in very high regard. You're never bringing one. It's useless. They've fully gutted that weapon. They need to fix it. Do something to it to bring it back. I've been playing for... How many hours I got? I don't even know. 2,200 hours, just about. 2,150, something like that. I've never even seen this weapon. Like, maybe one time ever in ZvZ. I will shed a tear for ye old Camlan for that one. Oathies is useful. Get this ad out of my face. Oathies is so useful. I personally think Oathies almost deserves a mandatory spot in the first 20. I think that it's fantastic for what it does. It's high mobility. It's good for helping with survivability and chip damage. It doesn't have a really, really long cooldown because I pair it with a Royal Jacket, and it should be paired with a Royal Jacket for its use case. I think of it as a home base, right? So that when people are resetting, they come back to where this Royal Jacket is, and this is the last one that gets set up. My guild leader right now, the person who runs as a caller, right, runs on that same philosophy that this is like the home base, and I think that that's the greatest place for an Oathies to be. It's one of the smartest ways that I've seen Oathies. I think Oathies is so useful that I would sometimes bring 2. If you said to me, I'm going to bring 2 Oathies, I'd be like, okay. I would never argue with you. Cool. Sounds good. You're giving up on some other stuff, potentially, depending on how big your blob is. But I think it's a great weapon. I'm not going to argue. You got guard rune, you got silence. Hey, it does a lot on its own. It's a good utility weapon. It's going to be a little annoying to fame, but it's useful. For sure. Dreadstorm Monarch. This is Incubus 2.0. That's all that. Just go back to Incubus, watch that same segment. Same thing. Exactly the same thing. What it does is not important enough to bring it all the time. It's never going to get a guaranteed seat. Some people will bring it. You will see it sometimes. You'll see these two weapons more than you'll see any of the... Actually... Man, I'm gonna put these in niche. Both of these weapons are better than all of the other four here. So that's kind of my thinking. Maybe there needs to be another tier here, actually. Okay, hold on. I'm cooking right now, but it needs to happen. This needs to be like, you might take one. You might take one ever. Like, and I'm talking in the 40. You might take one. You might take one. Like, maybe. Probably not. Just know that. Probably not. But you might take one. I think that it deserves a category between there and niche, because I think of niche weapons as being like, you're probably taking one for some of those comps, especially the brawly style comps that Bear Paws and Infernal exists in. You're going to take an Infernal before you take some of the other weapons that exist. And I think that that consideration puts it above where Incubus and Dreadstorm are, because you're not going to take those two weapons over almost anything else. They kind of fill their own spot, but they're an addition, not like an instead of. Does it make sense? I hope it does. One-hand hammer. This is one of my favorite weapons in the game. I think that one-hand hammer is beautiful in its simplicity, in what it does for the Zerg. It is the bee in the beehive. It is a stingy, annoying weapon to play against. The whole point of a one-hand hammer is to disrupt. I think that one-hand hammer belongs in either niche. Either niche or useful. It wants to be between here. It's not a must-have. There are a lot of comps that don't use them. It's probably not even useful enough to be useful, because it has some limitations that exist, especially when it comes to like Terry defense, or definitely Terry offense. It's the one hitting the wall, so you're probably going to die unless you have Soldier Helm, etc., etc. But the chances are that you're probably bringing them with you, especially for like open world stuff. If you fight off of a building, or if you're a brawl inside and clap, any kind of a kite clap might want to take one. It's a pretty useful weapon. I like one-hand hammer a lot. It's a hammer, so it's going to be a pain to get fame on, I think. You're going to have to find a group that wants to take you as like a D-tank to a static to get fame on your one-hand hammer. That's what I had to do. Pole hammer, outrageously useless. It's so useless. It's barely better than probably broadsword. Wow. I don't understand. They need to make the width of the ability for pole hammer triple wide for it to see play for real. And even then, I think it would go here. You're there. Like it would never get a mandatory spot. It doesn't do enough. One-hand hammer just does the trick better, and it is one-handed, so you get access to Leering Cane, which is a really big deal for pole hammer. Great hammer, on the other hand, because of the mobility that Great Hammer has for itself, you might take one. I think it's mostly, you know what, dude, I'm going back to it. These weapons are not worth. I'm getting rid of this category. I'm doubling back on the doubling back. You're only ever going to get to take one of these weapons, maybe sometimes, if ever, right? These are requested weapons that sometimes just pop up in the comp, and in which case, that's exactly what most of these things are, even for the sake of these two. Things in niche, more you can expect to be in the comp, especially with certain comps. You're going to see them a lot more often than you're going to see any of these other weapons. The gap between niche and not worth is much wider than the gap between, say, like whack and useless. Tomb Hammer. Tomb Hammer is whack. If somebody's asking you to bring Tomb Hammer, it's because they're doing some meme shit. I've seen like Tomb Hammer with like a Mist Piercer bomb comp, like Witch Work into Tomb Hammer type stuff. I don't do that. Just don't do that. It's not good. It could be good if you were like the godliest player in the history of godly players, but it's not good. Don't do it. Forge hammers. Forge hammers is probably even more worthless. There are some people that stand this weapon, and it just recently got a little bit of a buff. So maybe it's like it's thinking about being in whack, but it's still pretty useless because the stuff, the spot that it takes, like for the disruption, the stun, one hand hammer just does the thing better, in my opinion. Right? Maybe less so for brawl specifically. Some brawl comps might elect to take forge hammers first, but realistically, that's not a thing. Grovekeeper, very similar to forge hammers, right? The thing that it does, right? These other hammers just do better, straight up. That's Grovekeeper is a lot of fun. I'll give it that. I wouldn't level it first. I wouldn't even consider it fifth. Hodge. Ho! Hodge is a useful weapon. It's almost must have. I think that it gets. Oh man. No, it's not a must have. Hodge is a caller weapon. Realistically, if you're watching this video, you're not going to want points in this unless you're a really active talker. You have a good mindset for positioning and area analysis and watching different stuff go on the screen. Realistically, callers are their own thing. It's like it's its own breed in the game as far as like, man, my nose is itchy. It's its own breed as far as like things to spec up. But man, it's useful. I love Hodge. One of my favorite weapons. Right up alongside there with one-hand hammer. That's it makes sense because it is a hammer. True Bolt it's probably not worth it, bro. I love this weapon. I would bring one. I would bring two. Most people would not. I think for me, it's a very I'm over evaluating it. I put it 100 literally the day it came out. I played with it. I'm a test server, say PTR. Probably not bringing one. I might bring one in the 40. Like it's in one of those other like I might bring one style things that these other weapons live in. Chances are that I'm not though. Matter of fact, now that I'm looking at the way that this list is set up, I want to move Clarent Blade down. Clarent Blade is whack. Ah, man. The thing is you really might bring one, but it's whack, bro. It's a pet weapon, and I know it. These other halberd and carrying collar are, think of them as theoretically above whack, but they're not as good as these other weapons, and I'm starting to notice that there needs to be a divide between weapons you might see sometimes, but like probably won't, and like weapons you might see a whole bunch, but like maybe only one, because I think those are distinctly two different things. Okay, so gloves. All right, I'm gonna do gloves a little backwards. I'm not gonna start from the front. I'm gonna go spiked. Spiked is a must-have. You're bringing it. You're bringing spiked even if you're in a ranged clap comp. Like some outrageously nonsense stuff would have to happen for you not to bring it. Its whole purpose is to kill the tanks. So if the tanks get clumped on, it does the tank killing damage. Because it has a higher amount of damage that it does to people who are plate. So it enables you to clump the front of the thing that you're attacking and still be able to kill. Without it, it is difficult, not impossible, but you're bringing one straight up. I don't even think there's very many brawl only, like straight monkey brawl comps that don't run a spiked. Maybe there are. I don't know. I've never been in one. I would bring it. It's a good weapon. Force Pulse, not worth. Hellfire Hands, niche. Ava Fists, whack. Ursines, niche. And I'll explain all that. These other weapons are straight up fucking useless. You will never see them. You just won't. These weapons don't do enough. They're so basic that it's not worth bringing them. Ava Fists is a pet weapon, in my opinion. You might see it in Brawl. And if you do, you bring in one. That's it. It's almost the same way with Ursines. Actually, I would go as far as to say Ursines is not worth because of that. Like somebody, the one guy who's in your guild who has all of his spike leveled, he's the guy who's going to decide whether or not he wears Force Pulse, Ursines, or Ava Fists. Realistically, that guy is whoever his caller is, right? They're going to have a conversation and be like, oh, okay, I really like you on Ursines because you're good at Ursines, and that's the thing that I'm going to put you on, right? They might put him on Force Pulse for a little bit of the memery. It's like, it's not a terrible weapon. Okay. I don't think it's as good as Ursines personally, but that's between him and the caller. And I think, realistically, I think Ava's a little worse in that same department. But that guy that's playing Fists plays all of these weapons, right? So if you're playing Fists, like I said earlier, you're going to want more in the tree. As we're with Spiked, you might have a guy who's just literally 120 on Spiked or something, and he has 0 in the whole rest of the tree somehow. He would still hit hard. Chances of that happening is slim, but like if that's the weapon that you chose that you like fell in love with and you leveled it first to 100, that's okay. I mean, like a lot of people aren't going to argue with that. I think it's like, what's your Spiked? Well, it's 100. Get all these other gloves to like 25, or 50 over time, and eventually 100, obviously. But Spiked carries a lot of its own weight in its IP. Hellfire Hands is much less used these days, but once upon a time, Hellfire Hands was like the forbidden standard, right? It was like the thing you brought because it does it does a clap. It's a little bit of like a medium range. It hits like multiple sets of damage, so like you can hit, theoretically the wrong spot, still kind of hit. It's like a condolence. And it does a heal cut, which not many weapons that do a heal cut that are useful, relevant. Carrion Collar is one of them, and you can see what that is. You know what I mean? Because it gets beat up by Hellfire Hands mostly. You don't have a reason to bring the heal cut from Carrion Collar because the effect is not big enough and the heal cut's not strong. Crossbows for PvP. Zerg, useless. All of them. Literally all of them, except Energy Shaver, which is whack. That's its own class of weapon, I feel like. Trash. The whole weapon line. You want to do ZvZ? You don't even need them. I think I have 0 points in Crossbow. I don't even have Crossbow Mastery at level 1. I can't even pick one up. That's how unuseful this weapon is. Never had to play it. Nobody's ever asked me to play it. Bows are similar. Bows are very similar. Not that one. Not that one. And not that one. Okay. Miss Piercer, you might see as a bomb comp. If you have spec and bows and you like Miss Piercer, sometimes you can bring like a couple of them to do some weird funky shit. It's like in the same vein as Energy Shaper. I wouldn't personally ever bring one, but I've seen them in the comp, so they're doing better than useless. This is kind of the same thing. If you ever bring one, you only ever bring one, and it's usually high as hell IP. I might be getting these two bows confused. I don't play bows enough, but I'll let the chips fall where they lay. Let's see here. Longbow's not worth it, right? Sometimes people be bringing these in the comp. You might bring one as a bomb, especially if you have one that's really high spec. Usually the person that's like in bows, just like the other guy who's in gloves. All right, what's your spec in? Oh, I got a lot of spec in bows. I love bows. All right, can you play longbow? It's going to be like the first thing that comes out of somebody's mouth because they want you to be on a different weapon, realistically. Straight up. They don't want you to be on longbow. They want you to be on realm. Yeah. Like if you had the choice, I'd be picking realm hell over longbow for most scenarios. Daggers are mostly useless. I'm looking. Bridled is whack. Sometimes people bomb on bridled, but that's not something that you guys watching this video are going to want to get into. So like, it's whack. Don't do that. Bloodletter, on the other hand, is niche. Bloodletter has a couple different uses though, which is what makes it niche. It's not used by itself typically as like an assassin. If you get into Bloodletter, and this is a weapon that you use in like solo play or out in the world, it's a battle mount weapon. because it's so good at getting away. Just log back in here. It's so good at getting away that the safety level for it makes it so that you want to wear it because you can wear Mistcaller offhand for the purposes of battle mount. Battle mounts want to be using their abilities a lot more, and they want to be able to get away. So it's like a twofer for them. That said, you're on a battle mount, so you're not playing the weapon. So like, yeah, that's why it's niche. You might see somebody bring a Bloodletter in a brawl comp to execute people in the brawl. That's also very niche. You're going to maybe see one doing that. Spears. Most spears, useless, believe it or not. Riftglaive, useful. Somehow it got out of the sphere of whatever the hell it was doing. People love Riftglaive. It hits hard. It hits long. Far, whatever you want to call it. It's brought usually in couplings, so like you might see 2 or 3 if you see them, and if you don't, you just won't. Most people are not bringing just one Riftglaive. That's not... I've not seen a caller do that. I like Riftglaive. I couldn't be asked to play it. It's a spear. I don't want to play spears. It suffers from being like half melee, if that makes sense. Heron Spear is whack. People asking you to play Heron Spear are stuck in 7 versus 7 land. I hate Heron Spear personally. I think it's a terrible weapon unless used for like that exact scenario where you're doing roads content. That's not ZvZ, ergo it's whack. Spirit Hunter. Spirit Hunter's niche. It's almost not worth it. I would go as far as to say that it is not worth it. Spirit Hunter, well, it's coming back. I'll give it niche. I'll give it to it. And here's why. They just rebuffed it, put it back to the way it was, kind of. So we'll see what it looks like for the meta, like going through this season. And it might see some use. You probably bring one. I like stacking res, as I said before, which is another reason I think I give it the niche like category. Quarterstaves. Man, everybody shed a tear for quarterstaves actually, because I would not use any of them. I'll give Staff of Balance whack. That's it. I won't go any further. I refuse. The whole weapon line is grossly underused, grossly underpowered. It needs help. They're not like drowning. They're drowned, right? Quarterstaves in ZvZ. Staff of Balance sees some play in like a full brawl inside against another brawl, probably. But like, I would rather have other stuff mostly. Prowling, Shapeshifter stuff. Prowling, useless. I would never bring it to ZvZ. Same with Blood Moon. Same with Hellion. These things don't, or Hellspawn, not Hellion. These things don't do enough, right? They're mostly for small scale stuff, and I think that they're just going to stay that way. Rootbound is useful. It's almost a must-have. It's not my first thought of things that I would bring for a must-have, but it's right there. It's right behind Heavy Mace. It's following Heavy Mace into the door of must-haves, right? But it's not quite in the door yet. Primal is Primal's kind of whack. I would probably bring Primal to some brawl comps, right? Generally speaking, there's things that are better. Unless you're playing front to back, and if you're watching this video, you're not playing front to back. It's whack. Earth Rune is a must-have. It is too good. If In the scenario where Earth Rune is not a must-have, Hodge immediately becomes a must-have. These two things are interchangeable, but they're not both must-haves. You must have one. Pick one. Maybe I could put that as between here. Pick one. Just pick one of those things. I'm not going to do that. Light Caller? Light Caller's not worth it. If you're on Light Caller, it's because you have a lot of spec in the whole tree, and because you're getting occulted with like a beamer, you know, and you're like solo bombing on like 7-4 attuned or something. If you're watching this video, you're not doing that. It just is that way. I personally wouldn't level it. Very seldom does it get brought. It does get brought, but not often. You might see one ever. Still gaze is whack, bro. I don't know what the hell they thought with this weapon. It's whack. I would much have rather very many other different kinds of things that could have went on with this weapon. It suffers from the doing too many things at a time scenario. It's the jack of all trades, master of none, and it is not better than any master of one. It is crap. I literally would never bring it. Will it see play somewhere in someone's comp? I'm sure of it. I don't like it. It's, you know what? Fuck it. Fuck that weapon. It's useless, bro. I would never bring it. It's Timu GA at home. We'll get there. There's one good nature weapon in the whole game. That's a lie. I like Rampant. Forge Bark. Forge Bark is whack. It should be down here probably, but I'll give it its due. Blight, on the other hand, is very useful. I wouldn't say it's a must-have, but it's very, very useful. And I'll get to why it isn't a must-have. A lot of people probably think I'm committing sins by not making it a must-have. I have seen comps that just run 4 different healers that are not Blight. Like sometimes you'll see a Rampant, especially if you're on Terry defense. You'll go like Nature with 3 Holies, but like one of them's randomly a Rampant because the carpet's cool and it does have some legs. I like Rampant a lot. I don't personally like Blight, and I have an agenda against this weapon enough that I would put it in niche, but I won't do that because I know that people rage out in the comments or something. Blight, it makes healing harder. Like, just straight up, that's all it does. And I know that sounds insane because it's the sustain healer, but it also annoyingly gives you healing sickness. And I don't like healing sickness. I hate it. Not only does it give you healing sickness, it extends healing sickness. And I'll go into that on its own video sometime if you care to understand. But it's a good weapon. I'm not going to be mad at it. If somebody said, yo, I could bring Blight. Okay, yeah, cool. Bring that. That sounds good. I'll bring one. You see what I'm saying? I would never bring more than one. I might bring a second realm. Shit. Good weapon. Fire? Fire is... Man, as I'm looking at it, dude, fire's another one of those useless ass trees. Blazing. Oh, blazing. Okay. Dawn Song. This is whack too. This is whack. That's exactly what I said. This is whack. Dawn Song's not worth it. It's a good weapon. A lot of people will bring it. If you have spec and fire and you really like spec and fire, Dawn Song and Longbow are samey in that, like, dude, this guy only plays fire. That's fine. Put him on Dawn Song, you know, because it does something, even though it's not like anybody's first pick, realistically. For a long time, Hellfire sat in Dawn Song's spot, which is why I think that it gets shit on, especially by most callers. You might bring one. You might. You really might. It's going to be the guy that has a whole bunch of spec and fire, though. I think it'll be anybody who starts with it. So don't get Dawn Song and think, man, I got a guaranteed spot, because that's not a thing. One Hand Holy? Whack. Great Holy? Whack. Divine? Whack. Life Touch? Whack. Fallen? Fallen is niche. A lot of people will bring one random Fallen. Not very many. It's good for a reset heal in the back. If you bring a Fallen, a lot of the times you won't bring a Blight. Like, it's very interchangeable for that, like, one healing spot that it sits in sometimes. Most people will prefer a Blight because they like to sustain, especially while brawling. Fallen suffers in a lot of those areas, unless you're on like territory defense. If you're pushing to the 40, like if you have like more than 20 people, Fallen starts to see a little bit more legs, right up there with Exalted. These are things you're probably only going to see one of, but you'll see them a lot more often than you see a lot of these other weapons. Especially Rampant. Like, Rampant's like a noticeable full tier of need below these two weapons, and the same can be said for Blight being above these two weapons. The gaps between these upper echelons here are, the further they go up, the further they are away from each other. This weapon doesn't even make sense in ZvZ because it is a target cap, and it is random targets. It just goes wherever the hell it wants, basically. Hollowfall is a must-have. You're bringing Hollowfall. Stand on it. 100% of the time, you're bringing 1, 2, 3 Hollowfall, 4, 5 Hollowfalls. Bring all the. You get a Hollowfall. You get a Hollowfall. Hollowfall is the Oprah weapon of holy healing. Everybody should be on this weapon. It is fantastic. It is high mobility. It is good target choice, right? It has multiple use cases for its E because it is both mobility and for healing. Fantastic weapon. It is also one-handed. Oh, just fantastic weapon. All of these other weapons are not one-handed, notedly, right? So it gets access to things like Mistcaller, shields, Eye of Secrets if you have really bad mana problems. Any weapon that has an offhand, right, that does the thing that these weapons do is just going to be a step up. And Hollowfall, it is very many steps up above a lot of the weapons below it. It is very good. If there was a weapon that I wanted new players to try to play, right, to just see if they fall in love with it, just in case, it's Hollowfall. I would gladly have more good Hollowfalls than most of these other weapons. One-hand Arcane. Now we're in Arcanes. One-hand Arcane. Ooh, one-hand Arcane's kind of a tough one. I love one-hand Arcane. It's very good. It's very good for hitting over the wall. It's very good for silencing enemy DPS when they're on the way in. Like, it's good for stopping certain battle mounts, right? It does its thing sort of from a distance, so it can afford to be at like a goofy angle sometimes and not worry about randomly dying. So like as far as the first weapon, it's cool. A little bit harder to spec up because it's an arcane, and arcanes are not like, you know, God's gift to fame farming. So like you're gonna have to figure that out probably. But as far as like what to play with, I love the whole arcane tree. If there was one tree that like is gonna get the most love from me as a player, you'll notice almost none of these weapons are whack. They're all relatively worth a shit, in my opinion. One-hand Arcane is useful. I'm going to give it useful. It's thinking about being niche, but I'm going to give it useful. I think that it is strong enough to be put in useful. It is useful. It's very useful. I think that if you have a one-hand Arcane in the repertoire, right, it's just one more thing to say, yeah, I could play one-hand Arcane if you want. Yeah, cool. That sounds good, actually. A lot of people are not going to argue with having a one-hand Arcane. Some people might bring two. I have no idea. Especially when you get into like the upper, you know, like 40 man or something. Maybe more. What is this? Great Arcane? GA is the other end of useful. GA is useful that wants to be a must-have. Once upon a time, GA was must-have, and I think the change that made it so that you couldn't GA your own teammates changed it from must-have to useful. It's really good. But if the person who's playing GA doesn't know how to play GA and they GA your clump, it could literally cost you the fight. So just know that if you play GA, there's a ton of pressure that comes with playing that weapon correctly. And not that it's real difficult to play correctly, but if you take one wrong step, you might wipe the whole group. I've said it. Enigmatic. It's not worth it. Yeah, it's not worth it. I love Enigmatic. I think it's good, but especially if you get into like higher tiers of play, a lot of better players will tell you not to bring it because it just gets cleansed off. And sure, it like reapplies and stuff, but you know, somebody hits you with life curse, it's useless. There's nothing. If you're brawling inside and somebody doesn't hit you with life curse, it's pretty good, but it doesn't get enough love. So I'm gonna say it's not worth it. Witchwork's useful. It's actually really useful. It's right up there with Hodge and Earthrune. It would go into that pick one like line that's between must-haves and useful. If you're going to pick one to call with, you're going to call with Witchwork, you're going to call with Hodge, you're going to call with Earthrune. You might very occasionally call with some whack weapons like Soul Scythe, which is way the fuck down here. Chances are that you're not. Witchwork sees a lot more love than Soul Scythe for sure. A lot of bomb comps will play with the Witchwork, so if you get Witchwork up, you might be the bomb caller, or you might have a bomb operator help you call, so you'll just do the clumping for them, for example. If they're clumping to Tomb Hammer, for example, so you would just clump on top of the Tomb Hammer. It's a pretty good weapon. I like it. I'd bring one. I would definitely bring one if I had a bomb. It's almost guaranteed if you have a bomb, you're bringing one. Occult? Man, see, Occult doesn't get enough love. I love Occult. It's a great weapon. You're not bringing it to Brawl, though. Right? Just like Infernal's not getting brought to like a ranged clap, just like Bear Paws is not getting brought to a clap kite, Infernal's Occult is sitting in that same vein, right? It belongs in one style of comp. It does its job well. It's used for like one or two different things. There's usually only one. It's usually the guy who plays all the other arcane weapons. Or it's somebody with no spec, because you can run this weapon with flat tier 4 and it would still do its job. It's a learning weapon. It's very niche. I think that's all I got to say about it. Not going to hang around too much on it. Evensong and Dawnsong? No, it's not Dawn. This is Evensong. What is this, Locust? Almost had a stroke right there. Locust is useful. I love Locust. I think that it is one of those things where I personally would want to bring one in the first 20. Most of the time, maybe I wouldn't, though. Just because there's other things that I like think would squeak it out, but it's useful. If somebody said that they could bring Locust, I'd be like, slam dunk that, bring that. You know what though? I take it back. I'm gonna put it in niche, and here's why. I think of Locust the same way that I think of Occult, in that it can be played with almost no spec. It's a learning weapon. It's a weapon that I could put somebody on in order to learn their role, right? And to do their job without having to worry about them having like not enough IP, because I would want somebody who's on Locust to be focusing, especially in the beginning of their play. Somebody who's watching this video, you want to be worrying about your armors. If you're on Locust, you want to be worried about your Judy needs to be 100, your Demon needs to be 100, your Knight needs to be 100, just in case you get asked to play with any of those other different types of armors. Maybe there's one or two other ones. Your caller will tell you. And realistically, it's not important for you to have spec in Locust. So like if you spec'd something else and then used your credits on the Locust while you were speccing that something else, that would suffice. Like it would do enough for you to keep the progression. And you're going to have a hard time speccing Locust as it is anyway, without just straight credit usage, because it's like arguably useless for most PvE, because the E, I mean, all it does is cleanse, right? Like it doesn't do damage. It doesn't bubble, doesn't do any of that stuff. But in ZvZ, it's cleansing is important. So I think it's good enough that it would be in niche, but not quite as good that it would be in useful, because these other weapons are just a little bit above, right? I'm gonna bring a GA before I bring a Locust. I'm gonna hope that there's a GA in the group before I'm ever worried about Locust. This is whack. You might see this weapon, Evensong. You might see Evensong as a one of in some random pet brawl comp thing. Nobody's bringing it. It's not good. Other things are better. Not that it's not good. It's okay. It has its uses. Other things are just better. That's how I feel about this weapon. Whenever I see it, I'm like, I wouldn't have done that. Astral. Astral is niche. Astral is niche, but it really wants to be useful. It's trying so hard to be useful. The only reason that Astral's not useful is it doesn't really hit over the wall. It's mostly a melee weapon for like a caster weapon. It's a little strange, I feel like, but it's so good at its job, though. You're really only ever going to bring one, too, because Astrals don't overlap if you have two Astral pools on top of each other. Yeah, I digress. What's up, Sunday? Frost. One-hand Frost. Actually, is this Arctic? What is this? Hoarfrost? Icicle? Chill Hell? Alright, Arctic is whack. I could see a case where it would want to be brought to like some kind of a brawl or a kite comp, but typically speaking, I wouldn't. Like, I don't think that it has a spot in the 20. It may not even have a spot in the 30 in any comp. Hoarfrost. It better be Hoarfrost. Matter of fact. Hoarfrost. I had to double check myself. It's not worth it. Bedrock just does it better, quote unquote. It's better. It's not that Bedrock does it better. It does, but Bedrock is used more often. We'll say that. Hoarfrost is much more a. It's like an enigmatic, right? Some people might bring one, but like the chances of you seeing one is much slimmer than it is for these other weapons. Icicle? Icicle is niche. Nah, Icicle's not worth it. It's hard to spec it, and realistically, you're probably not going to see one. You might see Icicle as often as you see like Great Hammer. You might see Icicle as often as you see Ursine or Dawnsong. You're not going to see Icicle as often as you see Astral. Either of these healing weapons. Spirit Hunter is getting it's getting a lot of love here, by the way, for being a niche. Just comparing it to Icicle, they're almost the same as far as like whether or not you would see one or bring one. It's hard to say because Spirit Hunter, like I said, just got rebuffed. Icicle, on the other hand, did not get so much help. So it is firm in not worth. Perma's a frost weapon. All these other frost weapons are down here. Who am I kidding? It's must have. Realm, Perma, Spiked. The first three things I'm adding to my comp. 100% of the time, I'm adding Realm, Perma, Spiked. It belongs as a trio forever and a day. Perma is goated at what it does. I don't know that I'll ever play it. Maybe I will. Let's spec in it sometime. I've used it a couple times. I'm not real high spec in it, so like, I don't want to be on it. But it is so must have that there's been a couple times I had to be on it, and I'm not even not specking it really. I mean, I do, but like not a ton. But it is necessary. You're bringing one. If you want a main perma, you make that weapon your weapon. Same thing with Spiked. You're gonna have a spot unless there's somebody else who does it better. You're only ever bringing one, probably. You might bring two for the fake. I digress. One-hand curse. That's meme factor 5,000. Matter of fact, the only reason I won't put Curse Skull in whack is because, like, some meme lord is probably bringing that weapon. Honestly. That's on somebody's comp somewhere, and I know it. Life Curse, on the other hand, I think Life Curse belongs in useful. It's very strongly thinking about being a must-have. Actually, man, I'm putting in a must. You're bringing a life curse. You're bringing a life curse. 100% of the time, you're bringing a life curse. Melee brawl, melee clap. Chances are you have a life curse in a comp. The only time you're not really going to bring it is if you have like a full monkey brawl comp. But even then, I don't think anybody's going to argue with you saying that you can bring it, especially if you're above the 20. If you're above 20, you're bringing it. Just hands down, there's no questions asked, you're bringing it. Damnation, exact same scenario. You're bringing it. You're 100% bringing it. If you're not bringing Dammy even in the first 20, you're definitely bringing it in the second 10. You know, like third 10, I guess, whatever. Up to 30. You're going to bring it. You're going to see comps with Damnation significantly more than you're going to see them with Carving. Because Damnation can hit over the wall. Damnation's AoE is, like, if this is the screen, this right here, Damnation's AoE is this big. It is massive. It's a big AoE. You're not missing with that weapon. And it hits a lot of people. It does its job well. It pierces lots of stuff, real big, does a little bit of damage. Yeah, good weapon. Very good weapon. I love it. Shadowcaller. Oh, Shadowcaller. Shadowcaller's whack. It's a PvE weapon. There might be a soul in the world who would bring it. Which is the only reason it's in whack. It does pierce. Man, it wants to be useless so bad. I'm gonna leave it in whack just for the same reason a Curse Skull's in whack. It's whack, bro. I wouldn't bring it personally. Rodcaller, the last weapon from Curse and the last weapon on our tier list, is gonna go in niche, I think. I think this is I'm gonna go over everything. This is our final tier list here. I think that Rodcaller deserves a spot in niche. It is thinking about being in both useful and not worth simultaneously. The person who's on the Rodcaller, given that it is such a new weapon, needs to be good. And their timing needs to be pretty impeccable. Their positioning needs to be pretty impeccable. It's kind of a fire and forget weapon, though. You see somebody's low, smack them with Rodcaller right at the end of the clump. You're going to use Rodcaller on like one or like hiccup and then like 3, 2, 1 Rodcaller. Like more than not, that's how you're going to see it used. There are some cases where maybe that's not the case, especially if you're trying to like lower top-down health in order to get an advantage on healing sickness and things like hooded tenacity. This is a case scenario where your comp consists of like downward pressure, like I was talking earlier with Halberd and Carrion Collar. The person who is running that comp they're on some I don't want to play the meta type shit. That person who runs that comp, they think they're a snowflake or something. I don't know. You're not going to see it very often, but you might. Otherwise, Rodcaller might be seen as a one of, especially up to the 40. You'll probably bring one up to the 40. It's a pretty useful thing to have. Make it so that people can't heal at the end of your clump. Again, though, you got to be good, so just keep that in mind. Just go over everything. For the must-haves, you got Realm, Perma, Spiked, Earth Rune, but it really could be either Hodge or Witchwork, Howlfall, Life Curse, and Damnation. Life Curse and Damnation are both simultaneously must-haves and just straight-up useful weapons. I have seen them. You know what, dude? I'm gonna do it. The only must-haves I think are these 5. If I'm like the very first 5 that I'm putting in the comp sheet for my 20 before I even consider a 25 is gonna be these 5. I'm gonna start here. The next thing I'm gonna add probably is gonna be some kind of a D-tank. I'll take a heavy mace. I'll slap a bedrock in there. I'll slap a GA in there, right? I'll slap a one-hand arcane, right? Then I'll start considering things like Rootbound, Life Curse, right? Damnation. These are all like the next things that you would think of. Depending on the type of comp, you might consider some of this other stuff. You might consider a Blight if you're not going to run 4 Holy Healers, like I said before, or if you're already knowing that you're not going to run a Rampant if you're not doing territory defense. And then from there, you're going to build out your DPS depending on the type of comp it is. You're going to bring either Infernal, some Bear Paws action with Hellfire Hands. If you feel like you want another D-Tank, you're going to slap a one-hand hammer or theoretically maybe even a Hoarfrost in there. You would maybe start to consider some of this other stuff. If you start to branch above 20 players, once you get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm starting to fill out a little bit. If you know you want to write your comp for 40, the next thing that you're going to start to consider, you're going to start to see as a caller, is going to be some of these other healing weapons, or like, you know, Locust, maybe potentially an Astral, depending on the type of comp that you're running. But this is it. If you were to ask me what I thought were the most useful, most versatile weapons to bring to ZvZ, things that have legs, these are the things that I'm going to consider first. If you don't have enough Holofalls, this is the number one consideration is Holofall. It is, Holofall almost should have its own tier for consideration. There's never enough healers in the game. And the one time where we had 11 healers on a 30-man comp, we were struggling to figure out other roles. People who play heals guarantee that they have other stuff that they can play, because none of us want to heal. We just don't. And not that it's that we don't want to heal, it's that we know that it can be done by anybody who has a brain. Some of these other roles are straight up hard to do. Like, there's a pretty big gap between a good heavy mace and a great heavy mace. And it just is that way. If you have any questions, comments, you know, feel free to drop a comment down below. I will gladly answer anybody's questions. And, you know, feel free to like and subscribe, because I'll put out some more content. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.